in urban entomology, he has a keen interest in other insects, spiders, and creepy critters found in wild places. Harry Bryan is a territory manager for NISIS. He has been with NISIS for more than 25 years and has served both the professional pest control and agriculture industries. You can often find him in the field helping a pest company treat wood-destroying organisms on a farm or treating a restaurant for small flies. He has shared his expertise through hundreds of in-person and digital seminars, as well as on social media. I have two quick notes to pass along before we get started. First, a quick disclaimer. The views expressed in presentations made during this virtual event are those of the speakers and not necessarily the PCT Media Group or GIE Media. Presentations during the virtual event or the participation of vendors during the virtual event do not constitute an endorsement of the vendor or speaker's views, products, or services. Our webinar today is interactive, and we encourage everyone to ask their questions throughout. You can do so by typing them into the Q&A interface at the bottom of your screen, and we'll hold questions until the end. So with that, I will turn things over to Daniel.
All right, well, thank you very much. I hope everybody can hear me all right. And I'm going to be talking about these wood-boring beetles. And we've got a lot to cover. I hope you all have your pen, your paper ready, because we do have some good stuff here. And feel free to take some photos of this presentation, because some of that stuff will be up there, and it's good information for you to have. So we'll go ahead and get started. Yep, let's see here. It's not forwarding for some reason. Give me a minute here. There we go. Two things I want you guys to consider. For no bugs, you must know bugs. And what I mean by that is just to get out there and learn how to apply the products and things such as that, that's not enough. You actually have to know some biology, some habits and things for whatever insect you're trying to control. Knowing them will help you figure out and come up with some type of remedy to control them. So for no bugs, you must know bugs. So that requires a little bit of studying and reading and such as that. The other one is, I don't know what you don't know. So some of this stuff may seem basic to you. So, or there might be some stuff that you don't know that I'm going to be introducing. So, keep in mind that I have no idea where you're at in your knowledge when it comes to beetles. So we're going to do the best we can to introduce you to some new stuff if possible. And let's go ahead and move on. So here we go. We're going to start with the anabid beetle. They produce exit holes at a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch. And inside those galleries and such is a gritty powder, which when they're active, those holes, you'll actually see the gritty frass hanging down below those holes. So, and they prefer a moisture content of 12% or greater. So that's something to keep in mind. Because if it's an extremely dry habitat, you probably won't see these. They are probably more abundant in coastal areas and inland where the humidity is higher than in most areas. Like you might not find these out in Arizona where it's very dry. They infest seasoned softwood and sapwood and of seasoned hardwoods. So that's just a few of the type woods that they actually infest. Now here's a photograph of an anamid beetle. It's also called a death watch beetle. And some people refer to them as a furniture beetle, which is kind of crazy because it's a misleading name, furniture beetle, because they're not often found in furniture. That would be more likely the lictid or the true powder post beetle in furniture and stuff. So they're more apt to be in framing of houses, understructures, maybe attics, exterior siding, log cabins, and stuff like that. So the name furniture beetle really doesn't apply that well. Now the head is covered by the pronotum, which you can see. I don't know if you can see my cursor there or not, but that's the pronotum. And the head actually is pointing downward in this photograph. And if you look at the antennae here, the antenna, you'll notice that it's got 3 segments at the end of the antenna right here. It kind of resembles a drugstore beetle because the drugstore beetle is very closely related to this anabid beetle. So uh, I think I already said it's most common around the coastal area and such as that. So let's go ahead and move on. Their pellets are bun shaped, and you can see right here on top of this larva the pellet. And there's a few more pellets here. The larva is usually C-shaped, and they're inside this wood just chewing away, and then they poop out these bun-shaped pellets, like a hot dog bun. So there you go. There's a pretty good photograph of them. And here's even a better photograph of their damage. And you can see all these bun-shaped pellets compacted in here. So feel free to take a photo of that so you can keep it in your records and train your employees as well. Exit holes are pretty small. I already told you the size, a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch. So, and let's see here, right here in this corner. Oh, I thought that was a larva sticking his head out, but it's not. So that's the, let me hit the wrong button here. That's the anabid beetle. Let me see if there's anything else I want to add to that. These here in Florida, we find these guys mainly under houses and such, where the humidity is up, above 12%. And the way I have found them in the past is you see the holes and then the gritty pellets, not pellets, but frass hanging from the holes. And back in the day, we would go in there with lindane and do a complete topical application on the bare wood of the understructure. And that did a pretty good job. And then as we lost lindane was a chlorinated hydrocarbon in the same strand as, chloridane and heptachlor and all that kind of stuff. And later we started using a product called Dragnet, which is a synthetic pyrethroid, and we would go underneath there and treat it with that Dragnet product. Now, in some cases, like in log cabins and stuff, if the logs have been treated, then it made it more difficult. So a lot of times we would have to actually fumigate the house or the cabin or whatever the structure is, and that you had to put a tent over and figure out the cubic footage and apply the gas that you were using, either methyl bromide back in the day or Vicane. So that's how we used to take care of these guys. And it's still being done that way today. And there's some other products as well, which Harry will probably cover, such as Boracare and things such as that do a pretty good job, taking care of them as well. So let's go ahead and move on to the true powder post beetle. This is the lichted powder post beetle. You want to look for round exit holes. The diameter is 1/32 to 1/16 of an inch. And their frass is a very, very, very fine powdery dust. And it will fall out of these holes pretty easily. The true powder post beetle does not have any type of pellets within that frass. It is just a very fine powdery dust. And here's a photograph my friend Lau Bus loaned me, because I didn't have one this good. He did a great job here. And if you look at the antennae, you will see two segmented terminal clubs right here. One's here, and then there's a pair here as well. Now, you will be able to ID a lot of these beetles by just looking at the antennae. And we're going to, cover that a little bit more in depth as we go through these beetles and such. Plus, the true powder post beetle is more elongated and not little round and stubby like the other one is. So let's go ahead and move to the next photo. There's a photograph of one that I took, and you notice the two segments at the end, and you can have these beads here. This thing that they're in, I'm going to show that to you in just a few minutes, or seconds actually. Here's another photograph showing once again the two segmented club at the end of the antennae. So now look at this thing. I think this is a candle holder of some sort. When you all are doing inspections inside houses, it would be a good idea to look at other things beside the structure itself. If the technician in this case, if he hadn't have seen this thing in the corner and all the powder below it, there's a chance that these may have swarmed out. And matter of fact, that's what's going on here. These adults are maturing and coming out. Now they can either reinfest the article, or they can fly and infest other hardwoods as well. And speaking of that, these true lichded beetles will infest hardwoods. They won't infest pine, the softwoods and stuff like that. So they attack only seasoned and partly seasoned sapwood of hardwoods. And hardwoods would be stuff like oak, pecan, hickory. Oh, they'll get into bamboo as well. And so yeah, look at other items inside the house. Here's a close-up of the emergence holes. And if you notice on the base of this one, you'll see all this powder. So, look at things inside the house other than the house itself. You might find something interesting and something you can help the customer with. Here's another one. This was some type of hardwood carving, and you can see the holes and the frass at the base of it. And there you go. Look at all those tiny little holes and the fine powder all over it as well. And here's the base of it. Every time I move my mouse, it wants to go forward on me. So let me go back again. So look for things like this, and you'll find things outside of just the structure. Now these will also, when they swarm out, they'll infest other hardwoods that aren't finished. They'll find a place to enter and lay their eggs. And next thing you know, they're some other parts of the house. There you go. Now, this was a cabinet that was flown in from Asia. I'm thinking Vietnam or something like that. This was a Navy guy, and he brought back stuff with him when he came back to the U.S. And if you notice, you have all this fine powder and these little tiny emergence holes as well. So something like this, you probably would not be able to do a topical application. This one here would, we treated it by putting it inside of a vault and to fumigate it with Vicane in this case. So in some cases, you're going to have to fumigate. Now, if this was all raw wood, then a topical application would probably work fairly well. Products such as Boracare. Now, I think I covered all the powder post beetle stuff. We have a lot to cover today, so I'm gonna hopefully I'm not moving too fast for you. But the moisture content that they really like, the powder post beetle, would be 6 to 30%, something like that. Now, years ago, a customer brought in a mask. It was a mask of, somebody made, and made out of bamboo, I believe it was. And so I said, you know what? They actually gave it to me. So I brought it home and put it in the freezer. Now, if you put small items in the freezer for a period of time, you can control some of these things pretty easily. Now, let me back up a little bit. When we were up in the Panhandle, my wife used to make these wreaths out of bamboo because we had a lot of grapevines around the property. And one day, well, let me back up. She hung it on the front door, and every time I open and close that front door, the thing would either fall or rattle. And one day I got home and I saw some frass falling from the bamboo, and I knew that's what it was. So she wasn't around, so I got it and I threw it away. And when she came home, she was a little upset that it was gone. So I said, well, it was infested. And so I had to discard it. And she kind of remembered that. And that mask that I was just talking about, putting it in the freezer. Well, I went to take that mask out one day, and it wasn't there. She returned the favor and threw it away. So she said she didn't like it in the freezer with all the other foods. So she got me back for that. So anyway, let's go ahead and move to Bostricted, or the false powder post beetle. These prefer, hardwood, but they would rather, I'm going ahead of myself, attack softwood. Their exit holes diameter is 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, and they have a fine powder as well, similar to the true powder post beetle, and no pellets are in there. So that's one of the things. Most species will only infest fresh wood, and will not infest or reinfest seasoned wood. So sometimes you might find these things in a fresh furniture or something that somebody built for you. And, you get it in the house, a few weeks later, you start seeing little holes and frass hanging out of it. And that's most likely this Bostricted, or false powder post beetle. Excuse me. And here's what they look like. We have, this is once again from Lao Bus. You have the head, the antenna, and here's the larva right here. And there's a little bit of frass and stuff in this photograph. But the antenna, they're short. Remember I was telling you that you can identify a lot of these by looking at the antennae. And so these have 3 to 4 segmented clubs right here. They're actually called serrated terminal segments. And the heads a lot of times are rough, like you see in this photograph and back here. And this is the bamboo powder post beetle. Let me see if let's see what I left out on. I didn't put a bunch of words up here because it just takes up too much room. So as I mentioned earlier, sometimes they'll get into some fresh wood that was just treated, not treated, but built for you. And if you do find that, as that wood ages, they will not go back into it. They don't reinfest, in other words, but they will be found in wood, fresh wood, like behind bark, firewood, even grapevine, furniture parts, ornamental products, stuff like that. So this is the bamboo powder post beetle that you're looking at here. And this one here, this is the Chinese auger. I'll show you a photograph in a moment. And they have been recorded in Iowa and also in Florida. They don't appear to be widespread, but they are popping around here and there. And this is what they look like. I took these photographs many years ago, and you can't see the antennae very much, but there's actually 3 segments here on the antennae. Let's see here, you don't see any here, but look at the shape. The head, a little rough here. It's got these 2 little, I guess you call them exhaust pipes, although they're not. These are on the elytra of the wing. Now, there we go. You can see the antenna a lot easier here, and there's 3 segments on this. Lyle Buss gave me a call from the university, and he said he had these come in from a customer. And that's when they were first discovered here in Florida. And it was in Central Florida. I'm thinking somewhere around Lake Lynn to Orlando is where they came from. But he hasn't seen any since the last time I talked to him. So they're not very common at all, but it's something you want to keep an eye out on. And like I said, they've been found in Iowa and Florida, and I think in some areas of Hawaii as well. So here's some of their exit holes. It's a little rough. Not Bupressed, but Bostricted beetles, their holes are usually larger than the powder post beetle, the true powder post beetle, or the anabid beetle. The holes are a little larger. And here's some damage. This is the damage they called in this piece of furniture. And I'm wondering if this furniture actually came over from overseas. That's probably my guess. It came over from overseas and was already infested when it got here. You can see some remnants of one right here in this damaged area. And then we have our cerambycid beetles. And in that we have the old house borer and a new one for you all. Bet you never heard of the flat oak borer. The flat oak borer is a tinier, smaller beetle, and we'll talk about that as well. The longhorn beetle is the family that these belong to, not this one, but one more similar to this. So now the old house borer, if you look at the damage, their exit holes are, oval, oblong, I guess you could call it, wide, and it's wider than high, I guess you could call it. And if you look at it really close, the holes have been, they're kind of rough looking. Can you all see that all right? And this was somebody stuck a nail into it, or maybe a tool trying to open it up. But the old house borer, the photograph on the left from Lowell Bus, that's what it looks like. I have seen old house borer damage many times, but have yet to find an actual live adult, which is a shame, because I have looked for them like crazy, because where I'm from originally is Tampa, and we had a few communities down in Tampa where there was old house borer evidence up in the attic. The attic wood was, it was obvious. You go and you grab a 2x4 and it would crush, and all that frass would come out. Excuse me, I need a drink of water. So anyway, that frass would fall out, and inside that frass there was actually these little pellets, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But no matter how I looked, now this is in my early days when I was a much younger man, maybe in the business, 5-6 years, something like that, and still learning. And I found out that the old house borer, once the wood starts getting more seasoned, they will not reinfest. So these houses may have been fumigated when the house was young, or nobody ever caught it, and they just reinfested until the wood was at the point where it was no longer they didn't like it anymore because the wood got seasoned. And contrary to the common name, they usually occur in houses that are less than 10 years old. But depending on how long it takes for that wood to season, you could have activity up to about 20 years or so. So the relative humidity is that's optimal form is 80 to 90%. So you can see that there's a window there that has to be there for them to mature rapidly. So if the humidity is lower, that means that the larva will slowly mature instead of rapidly. So the conditions have to be right. Losing my voice. Oh boy. Anyway, let's see here. What else today? Yeah. The life stage of this one, the larva is the one that lasts for many years. Once the beetle, once it matures and goes through the pupa stages, the beetle pops out, and their job is to mate, lay eggs, and die. So they're not going to be around for very long at all. So let's dig a little bit deeper into the old house borer. You know what their exit holes look like. And now let's look at their damage. Notice the scale-like damage on the wood here. You can see these ripples, I guess you could call them. This is where the larva is feeding, and as it's feeding, it's leaving little trails behind. They have very strong jaws and they're ripping the wood, and you can see where they have been ripping. And if you look real close, you see some of the frass still in here as well. Now, we're going to talk about the buprested beetles as well in a little while, and you'll see that that even those will leave damage behind similar to this. Now here's another photograph where these little ripples actually show up a little bit better, all through here and up in here. I hope you guys can see my cursor moving around. And you can see some of the frass. Now the frass could be tightly packed, but when you tap on it, it pretty much falls out, from my experience, fairly easily. Or if you hit it with your screwdriver or something, it will fall out. Now, check out this photograph. These are considered roundhead borers. Cerambycid borers are roundhead, and they have very, very strong mandibles. Look at this video here. Now they're using that to bite chunks out of the wood. Now, how would you like to get snagged by one of those? I think that those mouth parts would probably draw blood. I'm thinking if they can reach down there and grab a piece of hardwood and rip it off, I think if it bit you, you might, have a little bit of a blood draw there. Now, this was in a piece of poplar, because these things will get into hardwoods, but they prefer the softwoods. And this was a piece of poplar that came to me from a lumber yard, I think it was. And I actually put this thing in a container, hoping to raise it up to see what kind of beetle came out, hoping that it would be an old house borer. But it never happened. It probably died within that container. Humidity might have been off because it was inside of a structure. And when you're in a structure, your humidity is pulled out by your air system. So it never happened. It saddened me. But here's something that you want to remember when it comes to old house borer frass. If you look at these little red circles, you'll notice that you have these barrel-shaped pellets right here. And that's one of the keys to IDing old house borer and damage that you find in somebody's attic or understructure. If you find these barrel-shaped pellets, you are dealing with old house borer in most cases. And so a couple of other things about them. The old house borer larvae generally infest new, less than 10 years. These houses in the I mentioned that earlier. Let's see here. I think I covered all that already. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. So there you go. You have your barrel-shaped pellets on this one. Now, before I move on, these old house borer, once again, you have to look in the understructure as well, because in the attic of some of these structures, it gets fairly hot. Humidity may not be up to where it needs to be, but on an understructure, the humidity might be just right for them. So you're probably more apt to find active old house borer in the crawl space than you would in an attic. So now let's move to the flat oak borer. I'm wondering how many of you out there has ever heard of this thing. I had some firewood brought to me that somebody had in their house, and to ID what was eating it. So I was breaking into it and found these little flat oak borer. And then under further research, I found out that not only were they getting the firewood of oak and hickory and stuff like that, if you have unfinished hardwood furniture in the house, they can actually infest that when they swarm out of the firewood. So, but they're mainly pests of stored products, such as firewood. Will attack structural wood from oak, hickory, and other hardwoods as well. I did a talk years ago in New Orleans, and there were several people there, some from Texas and other places. And one of the men from Texas said that they've actually fumigated some structures for these little beetles, which I had no idea, because when you do research on the flat oak borer, there's very little out there. but they can infest hardwoods inside houses if they find their way in, and usually they'll find their way in through either hardwood furniture that they swarm out of, or firewood, things such as that. So that's the flat oak wood borer. And then we have the galleries are packed with fine granule frass as well. They're a smaller beetle, so their emergence hole is small, but it is elongated, just like it would be in an old house borer. There you go, 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch wide, and it's oval shaped. So that's your flat oak borer. Now I want to go over a couple of longhorn beetles that you will see inside houses and around the outside of houses, mainly because a lot of these are actually attracted by lights. Sorry about me drinking in the middle of this, but it's irritating me. Flat-faced longhorn, you can tell it's flat-faced by just looking at it. These will infest firewood and other wood. Now, most of the beetles that are actually infesting this wood on the outside, they're attracted to trees that are either under stress, or they're dying for whatever reason. I have a massive live oak tree outside. It's estimated to be somewhere between 300 and 400 years old. And one day it got hit by lightning, and it blew, from about 30 feet up down to the ground, a segment of bark off. I mean, it was all the way out to the road. And so immediately after I got a call from my son, this is many years ago, I called my grounds department. I said, I need you to get to my house ASAP and treat that oak tree. And at the time we were using Dragnet, I believe. I said, I need it treated today, because what happens is when a tree is under stress or hit by lightning or whatever the case may be, it sends out an odor, probably an ethyl of some sort, and it'll attract longhorn beetles, it'll attract buprested beetles and other wood infesting beetles, because they sense it in the air and boom, they know how to get there. So they got out there, and the next morning I walked out and there were big old cerambycid stump borers, almost 2 inches long, dead underneath the tree, where they had gotten on the tree and started getting in the product and died from it. So some of the wood that you find may have trails of damage in it, and it may have happened when the tree was alive and dying, and after the tree is milled and all that, that's when you start seeing this damage. But it's old. So and I'll talk more about that in a little bit as well. So that's one of the beetles that could be introduced into a house through firewood. Here's another one. It's called the ivory marked beetle. All these kind of resemble the old house borer, and but they will not infest houses. If they come out of the firewood and get inside the house, if they don't find their way out, they're just going to die. This is the flat-faced longhorn again, looking at it from the top view. These are all from right here at my house, being attracted to lights and stuff like that. And then we have a pine sawyer. These are pretty common throughout the U.S. We find them a lot because we have a lot of pine trees. So, pines that are used for firewood in camps and stuff like that will get these infested. I had a tree, another pine tree, I'm pointing that way because that's where it was, that got hit by lightning again. I'm in Florida, and lightning's like crazy here, and it died. And I watched it over the months, and I didn't have it sprayed because I knew it was doomed anyway. An oak tree will survive a lot of times, but that pine tree, I knew it was going to die. So I went out there and just watched it, and watched how I started seeing pitch coming out of the bark and stuff like that, because many beetles flew to it and infested it. The bark beetles and then these and then buprestids, and which is the metallic wood borers and stuff like that. The flathead borers were in there as well. So I had a guy who had a portable lumber yard, not lumber yard, but a sawmill. And he came here and he cut it down and he cut me a bunch of 2x6s and stuff like that. And so after I stacked them up and dried them out, I could see where the damage was: little holes, big holes, elongated holes. And I actually pulled out a few beetle larvae in there as well. So these will get in there. And this is also another oak borer. It's the spined oak borer, and you can tell it's the spine because it has these two little spines in the back. So, and it kind of has that similar look on the pronotum here that the old house borer has. So when you see these things in and around houses, if you know what the old house borer looks like, then these are just borers that are occasionally invade because of whatever reason: firewood, lights at night, things such as that. So this one here, I want you to go ahead and take a photograph of, if you can. The reason why is this is very helpful. If you notice, you have the name, the shape and size of the holes, the type wood, the age of the wood, and then finally the frass. You have your licted beetle, excuse me, and it shows you the shape and size of the holes, 1/32 to 1/16 of an inch. Licted beetles will get in hardwoods and bamboo. Age of the wood is usually less than 10 years, and the frass is a powder frass. And then you have the anabids. Those are the death watch beetle and also called furniture beetles. The holes are round, 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch, and they like the hardwoods and softwoods, and they will get into wood that's over 10 years old. And remember, the frass is gritty, and this is the one that has a little bun-shaped pellets inside of it. And then the false powder post beetle, which is the brostrichids, the hole is round, 1/8 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch, a little bit bigger. They'll get into hardwoods and softwoods, less than 10 years old. They like more fresh wood than wood that's been seasoned. And the frass is a fine meal, not quite a powder. Then of course you have the old house borer, and it's a ragged hole, and it's oval, 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch. They love softwoods mainly. Now some of them will, depending on the other species of longhorn beetles, they'll get into hardwoods. So, and remember, they like wood that's less than 10 years old. And you have your powder, and then you have your barrel shaped pellets. So hopefully you guys took some photographs of this. It's a good thing, a key to have, and put it in your in a book or in your pocket, whatever. All right, let's talk about some beetles now that actually do not infest homes, but you might see their damage in attics and on other wood members. So this one here that we're looking at, this is a buprestid beetle. They're called the metallic wood borers, flathead borers, things such as that. And this one here is very common. It's called a sculptured pine borer, and you'll find these around the outside of the house at night, drawn into lights. But the main thing I want to show you, and look at the metallic sheen that these have. A lot of these of this species or type, the buprestid beetles, are jewel type beetles. They have different colors that are shiny, and actually a very pretty beetle. And this is your flathead borer. This is a photo that I borrowed from somewhere. But if you look here, you can see they're damaged, and then look at the frass that's here. It's compacted in. And if you're up in an attic and you see damage where you have open galleries, where you can definitely tell that when it was milled, it cut that gallery in half, and you can see the frass very hard and compacted on the wood. That's more than likely from a buprested beetle, a metallic wood borer. And it's old. It is old. They're not going to be in there. Now, there are some cases where you have houses built like a log cabin, and a lot of times, not a lot of times, but often, yeah, same thing. These will have the beetle inside the wood and they won't know it's there. So the cabin is built, and all of a sudden, maybe a year or two later, they start getting these holes, and these beetles are coming out of the holes. Now, they won't reinfest that, but it's a little unnerving to the owner of that structure. Wow, I got all these beetles coming out. And I've been in this situation before where I had to talk to the people and give them a choice on what to do. They can go ahead and let them come out. They're going to die if they, come into the inside, and just, that's the charm of the wood at that point. Or you have to fumigate to stop the emergence. And that's the only two choices that you have in this case. Because most not pine, but log cabins, the wood's been treated, painted, or sealed or something like that. So control gets a little difficult. This is actually a piece of wood in my wood pile, and this is what you would see in an attic. This is a rough cut 2x6, and you can see where the saw had cut through the middle of the gallery, and this frass is all compacted inside. Everybody see that? And up here as well. So this is what you would see in an attic. If you're doing a WDO inspection, you may want to mention it depending on what state you're in, but it's definitely not going to be any activity. You'll have to figure out how to word it yourself, but the chance it's inactive at this point. Another one you'll see a lot are ambrosia beetles. You'll be in an attic, or you'll see some furniture that has these little holes, but in those little holes, you get a dark stain around the hole. Or if you find a piece of wood in the attic and you see some half galleries, very small, you'll notice the dark bluish, sometimes purple stain, sometimes just dark black, but it's a fungus stain. These don't actually eat wood. The female will burrow into the wood, and she'll actually bring the fungus spore inside, and the fungus spore will start feeding on the wood, and basically these farm that fungus, and they feed off of that fungus, not the wood. One way you can tell if a tree is infested by these is at the base of the tree, you'll see all this powder, and then you'll look and you'll actually see the emergence holes. So when you're in a house and you see damaged wood with dark stain around it, you're more than likely you're dealing with an ambrosia beetle. This is what they look like here. Another one. That picture I just showed you, that's actually the Asian ambrosia beetle. And I just wanted to throw this in there to show you how they kick out their frass. They're not eating the frass. The wood. This is actually real wood that they're pushing out. So when you see the staining in the attic or in furniture such as this, you see the emergence hole and all that staining, then you're dealing with an ambrosia beetle. Nothing to worry about. The beetle is long gone, and this is the evidence that has been left behind. Now let's talk about one more wood-boring beetle, and this is actually a weevil. This photograph was given to me by my friend from New Mexico, Alan Foyer. He actually called me. This is several years ago, and he sent me photographs of these, and I knew what it was almost immediately because I've dealt with these in Florida. It's the eastern wood weevil, and I think you pronounce that Hexarthrum yulki. I guess that's correct. I don't do Latin very well or scientific names, but that's what it looks like. And he actually found this in an understructure, in a part of Albuquerque that was fairly close to the lowland area in Albuquerque where the river runs through. And the wood, the humidity was looks like it was up there pretty high, according to his meter here, and the understructure was pretty well damaged. Right there, you can see that. When he first sent me this photograph, I thought it was subterranean termite damage, but that's actually the beetle damage, and you could actually crumble that wood there. You can see also they had a lot of spiders and stuff underneath there. So when I had him here in Florida, it was brought to me by a technician in some wood, and I actually, when I first saw him, I actually had to take it to my buddy Lau Bus to get it identified. I had a hunch, but it was the first time that I've ever dealt with them. There's another photograph of one from Georgia. So Florida, Georgia, and New Mexico. So I'm thinking that these are pretty widespread if the conditions are right for them. And Paul Bello's photograph here showing the humidity, popping up there pretty much. So, and also this was the exterior of the house he found them in. They had painted over, but he also shows where he pulled it off, and you can see the markings on the fabric back here, the whatever they call it, sheathing, and this wood was definitely infested. Now the story he gave me was he told the homeowner, you can see that it's a well-wooded area, to go back and find any pieces of wood that's on the ground that has any type of powder or frass around it. And they brought it to him, and sure enough, he found the weevil in there. So the weevils were infesting this wood from the natural wood around it. So how do you control these? Well, if it's widespread like this, a fumigation might be the best thing to do. And there's a photograph of some more of that damage and stuff. Now, here we have an article that Dr. Gerald Wegner wrote back in 1992, because they had found them up in Ohio. I'm not sure if this article is still available. I know that Jerry has a copy of it, but this is the copy I had. I had to scan it. So this was in PCT Pest Profile, back in 1992, January of 1992. And Jerry found these, I believe it was in Ohio. Yeah. So that is pretty cool. So you have Ohio now, you have Georgia, Florida, New Mexico. So my guess is that these could pop up almost anywhere in the United States if the conditions are right. Now, I'm pretty much done with my segment here, but I want to introduce you to a couple of cool things. They're not wood borers, but something you might find in your travel out there. And this is the camphor shot borer, and they infest camphor trees. So, but the ethanol in gasoline also attracts them. So if you look at this, you'll see those little holes right here, perfectly drilled by these guys. That's the butt end of these beetles, and this was taken from this area right here. And this photograph I took of a gasoline spout in this gas can was, you could see all the little holes in it as well. I have a camphor tree out front, and so far here and where I'm living, I haven't seen these things, but they've been found up in the panhandle of Florida. So my guess is that one of these days, some of you guys might run across this, because if I have, and some other people have, it's just a matter of time. So this is more of a for your information type thing. So there you go. And if you want to know what they look like, that's them right there. And here's a close-up of one that I took a picture of. Little tiny thing, kind of stubby, camphor tree borer. So, and that's all I have for you. So that's it for me, guys.